Welcome to the AM Update, Week in Review. A collection of the best moments from Aaron McIntyre's Morning Update.
America's Governor Ron DeSantis goes off on companies like Microsoft firing Americans only to apply for more H-1B visas.
But there's also some people, a lot of these Republicans that say, oh, you can have 1 million people plowing as long as it's legal. That's good. Is that really good? Doesn't it depend on why they're coming in? Like, for example, you have some of these tech companies, they're laying off all these American workers and then they're importing H-1B visa people to work for cheaper. I think that's a total scam. I don't think that that's good. Yes, it is legal the way they're doing it. I acknowledge that. They're using something that's on the books. But is that good policy for us as a country to have Americans put out of work and then to bring in H-1B visa? And then they do chain migration from the H-1B. So the H-1B is bringing in other folks. And it's almost like indentured servitude because you can't leave the company. And so these companies love it because they save a lot of money off of it. But that's not putting the American people first. And so there's a whole host of, I think, really important issues. And the way I view it is, we're a country with borders and sovereignty. And if you don't have that, then you don't ultimately have a country. We, the American people, decide who comes and who doesn't. And you can do that however you want. American people have enacted through their representatives this H-1B. We're free to, get that to be taken away. Nothing's wedded here, but that's what it's all about. And what you're seeing in Florida, we're the only state that has stepped up to lead to enhance these efforts for immigration enforcement and to increase the. And the thing is, you've had millions and millions and millions, maybe 10 million under Biden, maybe more, but certainly at least 7 or 8 million come in illegally and from all over the world, not just from Mexico or Central America. You had people coming from China, you had people coming from Iran, you had people coming from Russia, you had people coming from all these places, and it's like, okay, are all those folks just here because they want to have a picnic? Maybe a lot of them, I don't know, but I know not all of them, right? I know that when you have that many millions of people, you definitely have folks who are going to cause, who are here to cause a lot of problems. And I think that that's been a soft underbelly of this country to have that border the way it was under Biden. So we're really leaning in. We're the only state that requires cooperation with DHS, with all our state and local law enforcement agencies. Like, look, in Florida, I'm going to order the state agencies to do it, right? I mean, that's fine. But, there's a lot of local police department, sheriff's departments, they'd rather not be involved in. I get it. But we're either going to solve this problem now or we're never going to solve it. So we've been leaning in on this in a really big way. I know the president and some of his key people in this space have called on other states to do similar to Florida. And I'd like to see that. I think that would really make a difference. Just getting through all the people that have already been ordered to be removed. That's not an easy thing to do. That's a lot of logistics. You got to fly and do this and do that. Fortunately, Alligator Alcatraz, you literally just drive them 2,000 feet and there's a massive runway right there. So it's very easy. It's a one-stop shop to be able to do this and to get it done.
It's just, he makes it sound so easy all the time. It's like, look at us in Florida. We got some legislation through that requires cooperation with DHS when it comes to deportations. Also, we built a large detention facility that's 2,000 feet away from a runway where we can fly all of these illegals, deport all of these illegals out of there. Just that easy. Just snapped my fingers, basically, and made it happen. That is Ron DeSantis, Florida governor, outlining the scam that H-1B visas are. And that's something that's not talked about. You heard him talk about that there. The chain migration that every single H-1B visa sets off. Because if you're here legally, wink, wink, on an H-1B visa, then you can allow your family to come, or maybe your wife, or things like that. And then once you're here, it's really hard to say goodbye and deport. That's the game. That's the scam. And he's hitting the nail right on the head. When it comes to anytime you hear a politician, especially Republicans like to say this: we need less illegal immigration and more legal immigration. No, we need less immigration, period, legal or illegal. If you're still legally importing just hundreds of thousands of people illegally with the express purpose, again, it is the express, let's just not make any bones about it, with the express purpose of basically undermining the American worker and the wage that they can command. That's just a scam.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
We haven't truly been able to hold big pharmaceutical companies responsible, or at least accountable, for vaccine-related injuries going back to 1986. That's the genesis of a post yesterday from HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where he went down the list of just how our system works when it comes to liability for vaccine manufacturers. And he went through this program that the federal government actually opened up called VICP. That's basically a court where the government will pay out money to victims who were injured by vaccines that in many cases they were required or at least encouraged by the government to get. He joined Charlie Kirk yesterday to spell out just how corrupt that program has become and what he's going to do to fix it.
Yeah, the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which was part of the Vaccine Act that was passed in 1986, and you know what happened back then, Charlie. The vaccine companies said they were getting sued at that point, and they were paying $200 in downstream liabilities, according to them, for every dollar that they made selling vaccines. And they went to Congress and said, we're going to stop making vaccines unless you give us immunity from liability. And Congress worked with the parents of vaccine-injured kids to come up with a solution, because the court solutions were not good for the vaccine-injured either, because they took so long. And so many of these parents are very, very desperate to get compensation and care for these, very, very needy kids. So they worked out a compromise solution where they would give the vaccine companies immunity from liability. So no matter how negligent they are, no matter how reckless, no matter how unnecessary their ingredients or their quality control, you can't sue them. But Congress made up for that by saying that we're going to create a compensation program and a procedure by which parents can come in and quickly, generously get compensation without having to go through this whole court process. So it was well-intentioned, and in that the tie was supposed to go to the runner. So if there was a question about whether the injury was vaccine-related or not, they were supposed to compensate the child.
Kennedy further spelled out in his post just how corrupt that system has become. He said in his post, quote, most of the special masters come from government. So these special masters actually overseeing vaccine injury reports reported to VICP, which is this government program designed to keep both pharmaceutical companies happy and be able to repair and restore any damage done by vaccines to those who have been injured by vaccines. So these special masters, RFK Jr. say, come from government, legal, or political posts and typically display an extreme bias that favors the government side. There is no discovery, and the rules of evidence do not apply. The government lawyers do not allow children and their attorneys access to the vaccine safety data link. That's a taxpayer-funded CDC surveillance system that houses the best data on vaccine injuries. Attorney compensation is in the hands of notoriously biased special masters and often hostile government attorneys who can leverage this power to turn petitioner attorneys against their clients' interests. So, 1986, this is when these pharmaceutical companies came to the government and said, all of these injuries that we are on the hook for, we're not going to keep making vaccines unless you just basically give us a carve out and take away all liability. So the government said, okay, sure, we'll do that. But at the same time, there are these injuries. This is the reason why you're looking for a removal of liability. We need to create a fund that we can actually restore victims of your products. And so this vaccine injured compensation fund was created, well-intentioned, as RFK Jr. said there. But as most things in the swamp have become ridiculously corrupt and not serving the purpose that it's supposed to. RFK Jr. went on to say he's looking to restore the system, clean house, and hopefully make some of the wrongs right when it comes to the vaccine injured. This is just the most recent example of this phenomenon from the boomer generation about not leaving anything behind for their children. This is a comedian and author I've never heard of before, named Tony Hawks, talking to BBC Radio Sheffield over in the United Kingdom about why he's not planning on leaving anything behind for his children.
My interest in this may have come from the fact that for some reason my father, I had one brother, he said to both of us, "I'm not going to leave you anything." And I thought that was rather interesting. It didn't seem to bother me at all. My brother, he wasn't so keen on the idea, but he told us and we knew, and so we had to go out in the world knowing that's what was going to happen. A lot of people say, well, look, it's so hard, you've got to help your children. I can't get it out of my head. What about all the children that won't get anything at all? It just seems very unfair on them that through an accident of birth, that some people get a leg up, some people get a massive leg up, some people get a little leg up, but they're not going to get anything. And I don't know why I think that way. I just think it isn't fair, because my son hasn't done anything to other than be born to me to earn that money. So I think we need to think again. Myself, I know I'm pretty much on my own on this.
No, you're not.
I'm not sure whether just an automatic leaving things to family is relevant anymore. It used to be, but I'm not so sure anymore.
What are you going to do with this money if you don't leave it to your son? Are you going to spend like Viv Nicholson?
No, what I'm actually doing is I'm setting up a charitable trust, leaving Arlo a job, if he wants to take it, working for that charity, helping to give money away to good causes.
So that is author and comedian Tony Hawks explaining why he's not going to give any of his hard-earned money. He's not going to leave that as an inheritance for his son. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. I've never heard of Tony Hawks before, but this video went viral over the last week, and he's just the latest in a long line from the boomer generation of people who are pretty successful, who are announcing for the world to hear that they're not leaving anything behind for their children. I'm mixed about this. He said, I'm out here on my own. I know I'm alone on this issue. No, you're not, actually. There are a lot of people, entertainers, who from your generation have come to the same conclusion. I think there are two things that can be true at the same time when it comes to commentaries that you just heard like this. Number one, if you're somebody from his son's generation, number one, you are not entitled to anything. You're just not. Everything that's given to you by your parents is a gift. Absolutely. So I don't really like the reflexive, just a selfish POS here. Just a selfish boomer. Screw him. No, I don't think that's the right reaction to have. Nobody is entitled to anything. But I think another thing can be true at the same time. Not giving your inheritance away because you think it's unfair, or you don't want your own children to have a leg up versus other kids who didn't have as good of parents as you. Isn't that an indictment of yourself? Isn't what you just heard an indictment, a self-indictment? That I didn't raise the type of kid who can handle an inheritance? I didn't raise the type of kid that I can trust to not squander that all away? I didn't raise the type of kid who would just look at me as if he's an ingrate and demand money. I didn't raise the type of kid who is worthy of an inheritance. That is the greatest self-own ever. And that's what all of these successful boomers who you see from periodically from these videos, that's what they're saying about themselves, that they screwed up as parents. That's what I think they're saying anyway. So, well, yeah, I don't have the reaction to this. If this was my own father and saying, hey, I'm going to set this up for a charity, things like that. Well, I'd be disappointed, but, I'm not entitled to anything. So I got to be a grown up about that and just move on. At the same time, though, if you're saying this about your own children, that you don't think that they can handle an inheritance, you're indicting yourself. That's the bigger story here.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
Employers posted 7.4 million job vacancies last month, a sign that American job markets continue to cool. Labor Department reported Tuesday that job openings in June were down from 7.7 million in May and were about what forecasters had expected. The job openings and labor turnover survey showed that layoffs were little changed in June, but that the number of people quitting their jobs, a sign of confidence in their prospects elsewhere, dropped last month to the lowest level since December. Hiring also fell from May. You can see that one of two ways. Fewer job vacancies means that more people are finding work, or that fewer people are leaving their jobs to find better prospects. So there's two different ways that you can view that. I just wanted to get a vibe check on what my audience kind of thinks of the economy and their prospects right now without getting super personal. That's what I asked you this week on the poll of the week, which you can vote in over at Real AM Update on X. I just asked you on the economy, are you very pessimistic, optimistic, or very optimistic? We'll get into those results tomorrow on the program. But I just wanted to express something. I would only be optimistic personally. Now, this is just personally, so anecdotally, and if I'm doing, worse economically, but it means the rest of the country is doing better, or while the rest of the country is doing better, then that's okay. I want the entire country to do well. But I tried to ask this question in a way that I would get people's personal response without asking the question super personally. Because there's only one thing that makes me optimistic, and that is what transpired with taxes in the big, beautiful bill. Because for the last several years, and this is an indication, I'm compensated in my day job very, very well, especially considering what people in commiserate positions, how they are compensated, and I know that. I'm compensated very, very well. But for whatever reason, we do pretty well with budgeting. We do pretty well with not spending too much, living within our means. Nevertheless, for the last, basically since Bella and I have been married, because of various side projects that I have, try to put away money for that. Nevertheless, every single year we get absolutely pilloried during tax season. And now we're back on one income, which I'm happy, and that's a blessing to be able to do that. But we're still, from this year, we are not recovered from what Uncle Sam, the number that he did on us this year. We're still not recovered. We're coming into August now, and we're still trying to dig out from that tax bill. So for the taxes alone, that's the only thing that's making me optimistic thus far. And again, that's just my situation. And this is, again, I'm trying to ask a personal question in an impersonal way. Because adding up what it's going to look like next year based on some of these new guidelines and the tools that I've been able to find so far, there's not too many of them that understand the new tax code that'll come in next year. It's looking a lot rosier for us, and it won't be a time of weeping and gnashing of teeth next year, but rather I think it's going to be a time where we're going to be breathing a sigh of relief, which I haven't experienced during tax season in the better part of a decade. So that is the genesis for this week's poll of the week. I asked you on the economy, are you very pessimistic, optimistic, or very optimistic? In fourth place, very pessimistic, I should say, at 8%. In third place, very optimistic at 10%. 2 points better than very pessimistic. In third place, pessimistic at 24.4%. And in first place, just optimistic at 57.3%. Few responses from you. Gary says, until government gets its finances in order, hardships will continue to trickle to the public. Also going to see another bailout in agriculture again this year, in my opinion. Last straightforward farming podcast, while crude, has been great insight into agriculture if interested. Okay, cool. If you're a farmer, straightforward farming podcast, Gary says, is one to listen to. And he says, ag may be getting a big bailout soon. Steph says all companies are in layoff mode. Hiring is stagnant and salaries are dropping. Wouldn't be optimistic until that changes. Depending on where you look in different sectors of the economy, different sectors of the hiring market, yeah, you can make a case that, Steph, what you just laid out there is more the prevailing wind than the optimist. Kay Adkins says optimistic that improvements are on the way because Trump will want to leave a legacy. Yeah, I think so. And Dr. Wizard said was more optimistic until Trump began to saying he would shovel free money to everyone just like he did before destroying the country with COVID and losing the election because of it. Free money is rocket fuel for inflation. Yeah, I think the Josh Hawley tariff rebate check thing, brilliant politics. I don't care if it was 3 months ago or right now, because this electorate loves it some free money. Now, it's totally morally reprehensible, I think. I mean, it's a gimmick, totally. I don't think it's actually going to come to pass, though. I don't think we're actually going to see COVID rebate checks.
This has been the AM Update Week in Review. The AM Update will be back on Monday and every weekday at 4 a.m. Eastern Time.